and got involved in like some crazy European financial deals to try and save the studio.
All right, it is vlog number 73. Thank you for joining me. Cruising down Interstate 80 here in Nevada, listening to The Rewatchables. They just did Godfather 3. I love that podcast, by the way. If you're a movie fan, I'd recommend it. So, I am recording this vlog as I head out to shoot a couple different episodes of Silver State Sights. It definitely feels good to do that and get away from simply doing coronavirus stories every single day, as I do working in local news, and I'm sure everyone else who works in news at every station across the country is doing. It's one of the biggest news stories of all time, and it affects every city individually, so if you're at the local news level, you're going to be hitting it hard. But that said, I'm focusing on Silver State Sights for a couple of days, which is cool, and I'm heading to the town of Wendover, Nevada. Now, Wendover is right on the Utah-Nevada border, and there's a bunch of casinos there, one of them being the Peppermill. Now, as I'm recording this, we have not yet had any announcements of casinos closing as a result of the coronavirus in Nevada. I have not heard of that yet. I am expecting that to come. I'd be shocked if that didn't start happening, but I believe I'm going to try to get in a couple sessions of live poker before they close. Now, this might actually be my last one here at this Peppermill in Wendover, provided there's even a game going on when I get there. I've been told there's usually a 1-3 game going on. And 1-3 is at least playable, if you ask me, as opposed to 1-2, which is just not even playable at this point for me. But that extra dollar does seemingly create a bigger game, and when you combine that with the concept of invisible antes, which you have to have in play for these games to even go, well, sometimes they can be decent. So, that's what we're going to do. We're going to go to the other Peppermill here in this vlog. All right, we are in Wendover, Nevada, and Wendover, Utah. I guess technically it's West Wendover, Nevada, and Wendover, Utah. We've got a bunch of casinos here, and one of them is the Peppermill. So I've never been inside of it, and I'm kind of curious to check it out. The best option for me, or the best outcome for me, would be, because since I'm giving them a little bit of publicity on Channel 8 News, the best outcome would be for me to get a free room. Can I talk them into it? It seems unlikely, but I will try. This guy right here, a takeoff on Vegas Vic, I presume. Wendover Will. Both of them cigarette smokers. Before heading over to the Peppermill, I decided to stop by the Wendover Historic Airfield, which was the home of the Enola Gay for a short time before its famous usage in World War II in Japan. It was also the spot where one of my favorite ever movies was partially shot at, Independence Day. That's where Area 51 and the scenes there were filmed, including the President's great speech to rally up the troops right in front of what is now Hangar 3. I have been playing live poker for 11 years, and never until today have I received a free room. Shout out to the Peppermill Wendover Poker Room. Apparently, they'll do that for poker players.
So there's two six-handed games going on. That's the policy they had in place that day, with the coronavirus fears still looming, as if playing six-handed is the problem. I don't think so. But I decide to get in there, as it may very well be my last opportunity to play live poker for quite some time. I buy in for 300 and waste no time, making a straight flush. I end up getting paid off for a guy's entire stack when he flopped top pair, and it was at that point when I realized I should probably start rolling some video on this. The first hand I get video of comes when we get two limps and I'm in the small blind with ace-king offsuit. I make it 17, not really knowing the proper raise size here in a 1-3 game. I get 3 calls, so with about 70 in, the flop comes ace-10-5, 2 clubs. I bet out for $45, and the hijack makes the call. Shortly after, the cutoff ships all in for a total of only $73, which does not open the raising back up. So I obviously make the call, as does the hijack. So with $285 in the main pot, the turn is another ace. I bet $100 into a dry side pot here with my trip aces, hoping obviously that he has the other one, but he doesn't, as he ends up folding pretty quickly. Obviously we take down the side pot, and for the main pot, and I'm not making this up, the cutoff shows Jack 4 offsuit. So he decided to raise all in for his entire stack in a spot where he had no fold equity to do so. If you want to know the level of play in some 1-3 games, I think that tells you. Next hand I pick up pocket jacks and I make it 12. I get a call from the hijack and a slightly above average flop of Jack 10-7 rainbow. I bet out small, obviously wanting to keep him in. I make it 13 and sure enough he calls. So with 50 in, the turn is the 5 of hearts, bringing in backdoor hearts. I bet about half the pot here, and he calls pretty quickly. So with 100 in, the river comes the 10 of spades, giving me a full house. I bet out for $45, hoping that he has a jack here, but he definitely didn't, as he insta-folded, which meant he likely had a draw. Next hand I play, we get 2 limps, and I pick up pocket queens in the small blind and raise it to 16. I end up getting 2 callers here. So with $48 in the pot, the flop comes queen 10-6, 2 spades. I bet out for 40, and the hijack calls, and the button folds. So with about $125 in, the turn is the 5 of spades, bringing in front door spades. I obviously don't love it, but I'm still going to bet here every time just about. So I bet out for 45. He proceeds to call that bet, as he is proving to be quite a calling station. So with 215 in, the river is the 7 of spades. It's obviously a disaster against a lot of players, and it's really bad against stationy guys like this. However, in a somewhat surprising turn of events, I check, and he simply checks it back, and we take it down without ever seeing his hand. And as you can see, we are cruising along in this 1-3 game in Wendover. Later on, the premium hands continue. We're playing 4-handed, and we get a limp, and I have pocket aces with the ace of hearts, with a dead button on my left giving me the effective button. I make it 15, and the big blind and limper in the cutoff call. So with 45 in, the flop comes queen, jack 6, all hearts. An overpair in the nut flush draw. The cutoff leads out for 20, and I elect to just call here, because with this hand, I kind of want it to be a 3-way pot against this lineup. But the big blind ends up folding here. So with $85 in, the turn is a brick. It comes to 3 of clubs. The cutoff checks, and I want to keep him in with all of his top pairs he could have. So I bet $25, and he makes the call. So with 135 in, the river is an offsuit 9, and now he leads for 25. Now normally I would raise here, but I just called with half my thought process being that he could have me, and the other half being that it was just too thin of a spot to risk breaking the game if I busted him. Because I do think that had he left, there's a good chance that this other guy would have left, and then the game would have broken. So, with that in mind, I decided to just call, and he shows queen 10 offsuit for just top pair, and we take down another one. Later on, I pick up pocket aces again. 2 black ones this time. I'm in the hijack, and I raise it to 10. The small blind calls, so with 20 in, it comes 9-7-6, 2 clubs. He decides to donk lead for 15, and I raise him to 35, which in hindsight wasn't nearly enough. He makes the call, so with 90 in, the turn is an offsuit 5. And now he leads again, this time for 50. Now, despite the one-liner, I figure that my hand is a little bit too big to fold against this guy, and I should call here and see what happens on the river. So I do, and with 190 in, the river is an offsuit king, and now he bets 125. Now, my read on this guy is that he's much more of a calling station and not the type of guy who bluffs or value bets thinly. And when he has been betting out on the river throughout the majority of the night, he's usually had it. And the fact of the matter is, I did open to 10 and pre-flop in this hand, so he could have a lot of different hands. So I decided to lay my hand down here, and I don't get a look at his. Next hand, I open pocket 6s under the gun. The button is the loosest player in the game, and he calls. And the big blind is the tightest player in the game, and he calls. So at 30 in, the flop is ace, 6, deuce, rainbow, giving me middle set. The big blind, who I mentioned is tight, leads out almost certainly, meaning he has an ace. My concern is keeping the button in this hand. So I elect to just call, and my plan works as the button does come along. And the turn is the 8 of diamonds. And the big blind leads out once more. And once again, I decide just to call, as does the button. The river is the 7 of hearts. And now the big blind bets 25. And I'm done slow playing here at this point. I make it 100 more. The dude on the button tanks for several minutes before folding, which I think meant that he had a hand like ace-jack in this spot. And the big blind ends up snap calling with ace-7 offsuit. So the river card, very good to me there, giving him 2 pair. And I take down a nice one with the heater continuing. Shortly after that, at just after midnight, I racked up and booked the win. All right, booking a $1,069 win here at Peppermill Wendover.
Every gaming device must be turned off by midnight tonight. The casinos will not be open and have any gambling activity.
All gaming and casinos will be closed for at least the next 30 days, starting at midnight tonight.
That was how it sounded a couple of nights ago. Governor Steve Sisolak ordering all casinos to cease operations in the state of Nevada. Our Bridget Chavez, the Syracusean, had the story for us on Colo 8 that night, and what an impact that is going to have, obviously, on poker here in Nevada. And I've been covering the coronavirus just as a general news story, as every other reporter in the country has been, for quite a while now. But for the time being, we can just briefly talk about how it's going to affect poker. And that's obviously a large effect that it's going to have. And I am fortunate enough to be in one of the states that has online poker available on WSOP.com. I have not played on there in years now. The last time I was on there was probably 2014, I'm going to say. And I stopped playing because, well, the game sucked. And I have to wonder, will the games get better now with a lot of live players being forced to go there? I'm not sure. I know this. The guys that drive the live games that I play in at Peppermill, they're not going there. Generally speaking, the guys that play online are guys you don't want to play with in the first place. That's been the case the last however many years it's been since the poker boom, and since a lot of the recreational players stopped playing online, probably around 2010, I'm going to guess. So we'll see. I know I was a loser playing online poker for several years, back in 2008, 2009, and finally, I'm going to say the month before Black Friday on April 15th of 2011, I finally kind of turned the corner and got myself into the black, and then it was shut down. So I've never made any real money, obviously, playing online. The last time I played online was just play money on PP Poker. So we'll have to see if that's even something I'm going to do. I'll be curious to hear if any of you have any success doing this during this period of time where live poker is not an option. And I know in the grand scheme of things, it's obviously not even something that's significant at all, but for the purposes of this vlog, I figured it was worth touching on. It's interesting that the things that casinos did leading up to it, like the game in Wendover saying you have to be six-handed, as if that would help if anyone in the game was infected. So, the right move, obviously. It's impossible to argue that it's not the right move to shut the casinos down, to try and do whatever is possible to limit the spread of this virus, which so far has been obviously out of control. So that's where we are right now. I did record a few hands 2 weeks ago at Peppermill that I still haven't put on this vlog, so I will have those for you the next time out. And then the future of this vlog remains somewhat uncertain going forward. As always, I really appreciate those of you who have subscribed. If you haven't already and could do me the favor of doing so, I'd really appreciate it. Hit the like button as well and follow me on Instagram @VenDeach. And I will see you back here next time.